Blah, blah. Hi everyone, it's Thursday and today I'm going to be designing a perfectly ordinary wooden chest. Alright, let's get into it. So yeah, today I want to be doing what is basically a mimic. So what is a mimic? A mimic looks like an ordinary chest until some unwary explorer opens it and then they get gobbled up by the monster that lives inside. Right, so I've just started with a couple of rough sort of concept drawings here from a few different angles so I can get a bit of a feel for what this particular design is going to look like. I'm just going to go in and add a little bit of colour to it just so that I can sort of see how different colours will work together. Right, so the next thing that I need to do is pull out all of the yarns that I want to use. Right, so I've pulled out a couple of browns and I've pulled out a nice tone of grey. So I'm going to use that for my metal accents. And then I've got a little bit of black for detailing. So that's kind of the outside of the box. Okay, so then for my monstery creature, I've gone and I've pulled a couple of purples, a couple of blues, pop of colour that's happening there. And I've also pulled beiges for the teeth. So these are all the colours that I'm going to be using today. And the last thing that I need is, you'll note on the concept sketch here, part of the latch is actually a little eyeball, which is like the hint that this isn't an ordinary wooden box. And so I just need to grab an appropriate eyeball. I don't know, red is more monstery, but blue is you know what I wish? I wish I had yellow. I might go the size down. Nope, no yellows there either. Alright, so I'm going to pull a 22mm and a 28mm, and we'll see which one works best. Okay, so at this point I'm just going to sketch out all of the pieces that I think I'll need to start with. Basically I'm going to work out my plan of attack here. So I know that I need an outside box and an inside box. Okay, so for the outer lid we're going to need two arched pieces that need to look like metal around the outside, and then we need the main part of the lid, which is going to be done as one main rectangle, I think. Oh, that line was not at all straight. This pen is not doing me any favours today. The same wood motif in the middle, and then the length from there to there will dictate that length as well. So if we call that variable A, we can know that that's A as well. So therefore we'd need to make this piece first. We would also need two leather straps that go across the top. Now the eyeball is also going to be attached to the lid in sort of this area here, but I'm inclined to leave details like that until after I've worked out the base structure. So I will come back and work out what I want to do for that latch after I've drawn out the rest of the pieces, I think. So that's the lid. So then for the base of the box, we need two side pieces. Again, metal edging around wooden panels. And we know that this length is the same as this length. So we'll call that B. And we'll need a front and a back panel as well. And just a lot of mixing metal and wood. So just a lot of grey and brown for this outside box. And so the width of that is going to be, we'll call that C. We'll call that C. We need a base piece for the box as well. And I will likely not choose to add any detail to the base of the box just because it's not going to be seen. It feels like a little bit of a wasted effort. There are other areas where any efforts will be much more appreciable, much more visible and thus more worth the time it takes to do them. So that's kind of the rough base of the box. So I'm going to start with the top of the box and specifically with these arched pieces. They are the most complex, the rest are just squares, and so basically I'm going to let however these turn out dictate the exact proportions of the rest of the box. Okay, so for additional detail pieces for the external, we have a couple of bits that would need to be attached. I'll sort of see. Honestly, how I approach these particular pieces is going to depend entirely on how big the finished box comes out. At the moment I'm planning on making it not much bigger than like this. I'm going to start making these pieces just because I feel like I've shown a lot of planning right at this front bit. So we'll do the external box and then I will come back and we'll break down the internal box once we have a better idea of the dimensions that we're working in. Okay, so this project hit its first hurdle. So after really, really liking the way this was turning out, I realized very quickly not only was it very small and that there was no way I was going to be able to fit everything I wanted to into it, but the cotton was very, very soft and I don't think it was going to work. So I was forced to put all of those pieces aside and in fact get rid of the Brighton cotton altogether, and I replaced it with a double strand of acrylic because acrylic's got my back. And I made all of the pieces again using the double strand trick. So exact same pattern, just double stranding. It makes a massive difference. As you can see there, single strand, double strand. Now, it was a shame that I had to swap to a darker brown because it means that the detail that I was able to get on the smaller pieces isn't as possible. So the smaller pieces, when I worked in the back loop, you could kind of see it a little more easily, and so it gave that real plank effect, whereas on the dark I don't know if that is even coming through, but it is there and I know it's there, and if I ever got the chance to make this again in maybe a more fantasy color, it would show up a little better. So it's a little bit of disappointment there, but that's okay. So I'm just going to assemble the lid now. I'm going to use the loops to do this, so I was very careful to keep the same number of stitches around this edge as there is along this edge, so I could literally just stitch front loop to front loop. So I'm going to assemble the lid now and the base of the box, and then we'll come back and we'll just sort of see what we have to work with. Okay, so I have assembled all my pieces. Pieces fit together close enough. I'm fairly happy with it. They have none of the detail that I've planned yet, but I think this is going to work just fine. So now that I'm happy with how those two pieces are at the moment, I am just going to make, so I'll be making some straps for them and the little handles for the side. And then I want to really resolve how this eye piece is going to work. I'm thinking I'm going to do the strap detailing out of the dark grey or the mid grey. So they're going to take no time at all to turn into something. So let's just start. Okay, so it is the next day. Things were starting to take a little bit of time, but I basically whipped up all of the details I want to attach to the outside of the box. Now for the eye, I've also made just a little white backing piece. Yeah, I've decided to go with this sort of translucent, and I wanted to give something to really reinforce the color. So it'll be there like that. So while I didn't think people would be necessarily interested in watching me just sit here flailing around with a hook, I thought that pinning things on might be interesting. So I just thought I'd come back and we could do that bit together and just see what we have to work with. So that's where we currently are. And that's kind of the external of our mimic done. So I reckon that's looking pretty close to the external concept there. Hello. Wow. So now I just want to pop that to one side and I want to plan out what we're going to need for the interior. Okay, so for the interior of the mouth, first of all, I know I need a tongue piece. I can't find my marker anymore, but I'll keep just using the thick one, I guess. Is play with some sort of knobbly texture that's in maybe the electric blue and with the dark blue as the base or something like that. Looking at, oops, sorry bud, marker. I also know that I'm going to need teeth, and with the teeth, I want to try and use a couple of these colors to create sort of a bit of a variation so they look kind of monstery and bony. And with the teeth, I also have to just make sure that because they will have to sit so that when the box is shut, they can't be seen. They'll have to be along the top and along the bottom, and they'll have to intersect so that they're not hitting one another and they can be like tucked back inside each other without too much hassle. And we also know that we're going to need this just overall mouth piece, potentially with the throat as well. Now, the way I'm currently picturing doing that is having it as like a long square with sort of these little gussets at the side, with the stitched in detail of the throat, and I think that's called a uvula, coming at you with the actual names for anatomy this time around. And we might go a few different tones here, like maybe we go like lighter around the throat just to highlight it, like a dark further around. Most of this would be covered by the tongue, you would assume. So that's kind of my loose plan now. Now, because when I open the mouth, I want to see if I can get the tongue to sort of move a little bit. So it's like it's just pure ambition, this project. I do just want to mock this up with a piece of paper first, just to sort of check length and see if this will actually make any sense. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of movement there. And so you see we've also got these little gaps at the side, and that's what I meant when I was talking about these little sort of gussets. So they'll be just like extra pieces that will just cover that little hole. I'm actually very satisfied with the amount of movement we're getting there. Now the real question will be is, can it be replicated with crochet? All right, buddy, you go over there. Right, so before I go embarking on any adventures, I'm just going to make the teeth really quickly, just out of, I've got my 2 tones here. I'm going to make them starting from the base, working towards the tip, just as some very basic pointy little pieces. I could have sworn I'd made 7 teeth, but I can find 6 right now, so 6 is what we're working with. Fit in there, and hide down inside, and just chomp, chomp, chomp. So now the time has come to make the throat. Now to do that, I'm going to actually unpin this paper and use it as a bit of a guide. So that is our piece. While it was in there, I should have marked out where I wanted the gusset. There we go. So I know that I need a gusset from there to there. I don't know really what that's going to look like, but I know it needs to be sort of some sort of paper, not paper. It needs to be some sort of extension of the main piece. You see I've just sort of sticky taped a cone of paper on there to simulate the tongue. But what we really need is just this rectangle shape. I'm going to make it a little bit wider than this as well, because this did not quite fill the whole space inside. And I'm going to start, I think, with the throat as a central motif, and then start working outwards. Okay, so I thought it would be funny to give him kind of like a 3-dimensional, a little throat dangly bit, which again I believe is called the uvula, but I'm just allowing myself room to cut that out if it's not. And I've started building up part of the throat in this pale colour as I sort of mapped out here. Now, I can see that I'm already starting to reach size limits, and so what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to swap to my dark colour now and flesh out the rest of this square, just building out to the rectangle shape. My dark colour is here, and I think that'll work quite nicely. So I've made the main piece of the throat and I've just sort of pinned it where the paper was before. So it's given us a good idea of how much movement we're actually going to get. And so if I attach the tongue there, we should get a little bit of a waggle there as well. I'm beginning to worry that it's going to sort of buckle a little bit. It's kind of one of those ongoing issues with trying to do stupid complex things in crochet. In that, like, I'm not sure these are going to hold their shape unless I reinforce them with something, but I'm just going to keep an eye on it for now because I'd really rather keep this a purely yarn project. So that's how that is working now. So I'm just going to make these little wedge pieces to fill in those gaps at the sides. All right, so there is my throat piece with the 2 little sides as well now. Yeah, I guess I'll just pin that back in place. There's so many pins in this thing right now. Okay, so I didn't pin it as neatly as I'm going to need to make sure that everything's sitting right, but for now, those gussets are definitely the right width. They are covering up that little gap. So now I'm going to pin the teeth in place. So let's just add another layer of pins in here and just sort of see how much room we have left for the tongue. Again, I might just have to tweak the spacing on that a little bit, but you can see sort of the principle there. They all do fit inside. In fact, I might even lose the middle 2 and just go with 4 teeth, but we'll see. So now the last piece I need is the tongue. So this is a size accurate, or a 2-scale drawing of the tongue here. So I've extended it down a little bit to give me some room to anchor it in the mouth itself, because I want the top to disappear down the throat basically. So I want to anchor it at the base, not at the top. And then I'm not really sure right now how I'm going to work the texture that I want on top. But what I do know is that I'm going to start at the tip and work back towards the base. And I know that I'm going to be working in a couple of nice blues here. So what is happening? Okay, so I have made a tongue. I ended up using a triple crochet trick to get some knobbles on the tip of it, but I got bored with doing that texture. And so I cheated a little bit on the back half just because most of that's not going to be visible. And it's going to be in there like that. So now what I actually think I need to do is disassemble a lot of this and just see if this tongue will work. So now comes the tricky part. So you'll see that design challenges aren't always linear in their nature. And I think what I'm gonna do in my approach on how to assemble this guy is unpin literally everything. Right, so now that's all done, I'm just gonna work out how to stitch it all together. Okay, so I took him away and I sewed in all of his teeth, and all of his pieces are attached now. I did decide to not include the hinges. I decided that they were adding unnecessary clutter to the back of the piece. If you're ready for the reveal. So the jaw doesn't open and close quite as nicely as I would like, but I am still really happy with just how much articulation I was able to get. He has a good range of movement. Everything is pretty secure. I just wish that that tongue had a little bit more animated life to it. So that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed something a little bit different. I really like doing these design challenges because they allow me to try new things without having to always be thinking about how would I replicate this? How would I teach somebody else how to do it? So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye.